Here's an icebreaker you shouldn't use on normal people. Anyone know about Sage? It's the Sonic Amateur Games Expo, where people host a bunch of Sonic fan games and ROM hacks. It's pretty fun. Every year I like checking out what people are offering, but why am I telling you this? Well, cause even though the event is focused on Sonic, it's not exclusively about him. You can find games based on other franchises, and recently, they've been skewing to bring demos for upcoming indie games to the forefront, which is really cool. One year, in between all the games based on something I knew, I found something original, a demo for a game called Pizza Tower. The demo was during 2019, and even though it's been a while at this point, I always remembered that demo I played and how impressed I was. The game went through a pretty long development cycle, and I'm gonna be honest, I didn't even know it came out when it did in January. It wouldn't be until March or so when I caught wind of it once it exploded in popularity online. I got the game a few months after that in May, and how'd that turn out? Well, in the 8 months from then to now, I've beaten the game so many times I have genuinely lost track, and as I make this video, I'm already going for another max percent playthrough, so yeah, it was alright. It's crazy finally running through this game after having my idea of it being that super old demo for years, and you know what? Let me go through some of the old demos, because I think they act as interesting little development time capsules. I only want to cover 4 of them, those being the first one, known as Demo 0, Demo 2, the Sage demo I originally played, and the final one called Peppino's Xmas Break. The first half of the demos here are really funny to go back to, cause to get ahead of myself a bit, Pizza Tower's movement is among the best I've seen in a platformer, and this feels like I'm wading through mud. For a lot of in-development stuff, it's expected to slowly see things get added to improve the gameplay, but it's not as highlighted how some stuff gets removed to make the game actually fun. Like, there's this high jump that would later become the jump's normal height, and is really pointless here, cause why would you ever not jump like this? And the night armor focused on you moving around with it instead of sliding like in the final version, which ain't great when it's the slowest transformation in any video game. Despite this basically being the rough outline of what the game would be, a lot of things still would show up in the final game. Both music tracks are early versions, but still hit the same beats. Sprites of Peppino and the enemies are pretty close. Secret rooms are super different though. Instead of eye rooms, you get sentenced to the pizza realm. That looks good as hell. I just know that was from some place that has a logo saying just pizza on it and tastes like God made it. Demo 2 is mainly interesting for the different type of level design and the multi-floor structure. Stages are separated into smaller individual rooms now, kinda like NES Mega Man if I had to compare it to something, and you mainly search around looking for toppings because at the end of the level you sacrifice all of them to the rectangle with a face. It sometimes feels like mini puzzle or challenge rooms, but the segmented levels kinda disrupts the quick pace it feels like it wants to have. There is an interesting idea where you collect pizza coins in each level that you exchange to go into a timed level that tests you on all that stage's gimmicks to get a secret ingredient. I imagine this could have gotten really complex and cool in the full game, but unfortunately the idea got abandoned here, which isn't that bad, considering the factory shows how it also could have been very annoying. The Sage demo is actually pretty close to the final game in terms of movement, and beta versions of Pizzascape, Ancient Cheese, and Blood Sauce Dungeon show up here, but above all of that, you get to meet a very special character. Snick! It's him. Some controls are slightly different, wall running still feels a bit weird, and you can't parry using taunts. Surprisingly, that wouldn't come in until the full game. Other than that though, yeah, things started feeling pretty comfortable by this point. The demo caps off with Snick Challenge, a marathon through the 3 levels while being chased by holy shit they got him. I actually like the spooky little song that plays here, and when you wrap things up, you get to play as Snick. He's very fun, not great at attacking things, but he builds speed near instantly. Plus, look at his sprites, man. They got Metal Snick in this game. How can you not love this guy? I'm pretty sure the developers said they wouldn't add Snick to the main game, but damn do I wish they would, that being instant 5 extra playthroughs from me. Peppino's Xmas Challenge isn't anything crazy. I only really looked at it for 2 reasons. First, it was the last demo release, so I wanted to see how close it was to the final game, but it's the same as the Sage demo. Literally the only difference I noticed was you getting up faster when getting burned. Second, when going through the Pizza Tower wiki, I noticed a level that was only in this build called Strong Cold, but it just ended up being a harder version version of the Beta Blood Sauce Dungeon. I probably didn't need to talk for that long about the demos, but I think development stuff is cool, damn it, and this is my video. Regardless, let's jump into the real deal now. This game follows our lovable protagonist, Peppino Spaghetti. He's down on his luck, but unfortunately for him, life loves kicking people while they're down. So, a sentient pizza named Pizza Face, for literally no reason, decides to aim a giant laser at Peppino's restaurant. So, being fueled off pure rage, Peppino decides to run up to the tower to beat up a giant pizza, and maybe if he's lucky, get some money to pay rent on the way back. So here's the tower. We've got 5 floors of madness to tackle, with 4 stages apiece for the most part, all themed too. We got the opening tower area, then some Wild West stuff, a vacation getaway inside the tower, because you don't actually get to leave. The city area that has a giant fridge in it, and the employees only area that you shouldn't be in. In each stage, you collect toppings that you later use the money from to buy the boss gate, beat the boss to get a key in the next floor, repeat until golden brown. Before we tackle any of that though, we have to get past the tutorial. The tutorial of this game already shows how it's of high class. There's drawings on the walls showing you what your moves do, and these pizzas are here if you need any extra clarification, but nothing forces you to stop moving while the game gives you a seminar on how you should be playing it. You get to continue at your own pace, which I feel is the way it should be done, especially for platformers, and it helps that the tutorial is built like a small and extremely simple normal level, so it gives you a good idea on how you'll be maneuvering terrain while giving you some extra space to mess around a bit. Good thing too, cause Peppino has a full suite of moves he can use, with the most important being the run and grab. After a bit of running in one direction, Peppino goes into a mock run, letting you barrel through enemies, blockades, and basically anything that can impede you moving forward besides literal walls. The grab is your main attack. You can use it for absolutely murdering enemies, but it can also work as a movement tool. Dashing into a run gives you extra starting speed, allowing you to do a full sprint faster and make further jumps. Normally to run up walls, you need to already be in a mock run, but if you dash at a wall and hold the run button, you can go up from a standstill. You also have a ground pound, or I guess it's more of a belly flop. I think it's cool how if you want to use it to break blocks, you have to go down from a specific height. Makes you think about your positioning a little bit more. There's the super jump. Initially I thought it'd be Mario 2 style, where you charge and go up, but this is a way more interesting way of doing it. You can only do a super jump after you've gained enough speed to mock run, and on top of that, not only does it go up until you hit a ceiling, you can also cancel it in midair to keep your speed and redirect it as necessary. Finally, there's the taunt button, which importantly lets you breakdance, but it's also good for parrying attacks. Gonna be honest, a lot of the time I forget to parry in levels, but it does come in handy during boss fights. At the end of the tutorial, we get introduced to pizza time. Getting rid of this guy, his name's Pillar John by the way, has a countdown start and I get run back to the beginning before time's up. What's fun is that if you do run out of time, you don't instantly die. Instead, you get chased around by the pizza face and have to outrun death to the exit. Depending on what part of what level you're in, sometimes it's pretty much impossible to get past him, but it feels even more rewarding when you can perfectly outmaneuver him. It also isn't as simple as a run back to the start, since getting rid of Pillar John switches these jawing blocks, which is a very funny thing to say, and now routes through the levels can be changed pretty drastically. For a lot of levels in the first floor, the paths aren't changed that much, usually only adding one new area to go through. Blood Sauce Dungeon doesn't even have that really, instead giving you easier paths to run up with. They do get more complex as you go through though, and some stages like Deep Dish 9 and Peppybot Factory take place almost entirely on different routes. Ending the tutorial lets us see the hub area. It almost feels like it's designed like a mini level, which makes it pretty fun to run through and lets it act as a safe area to mess around with movement. That's a pretty good thing too, cause Peppino's pretty hard to get a grasp on initially, but as you go through the game, you will get a better handle on his control, which I'll get into later. There's junk blocks around here that probably won't become important, as well as areas for clothes and chef tasks. You get different colored clothes through doing random things like ending your combo at a certain point, or doing more specific stuff like beating the first floor in under an hour. Chef tasks, meanwhile, are just achievements, but I like how the things they have you do can, in some cases, help you get a better grasp on either general gameplay stuff or stage gimmicks. In John Gutter, the opening stage, there's one that makes you go through in under 2 minutes, and another that makes you get a combo of 99, which I think is a good way of chopping up two of the game's core philosophies in an understandable way. There's other more specific ones too, like Fun Farm, making you not get hit while carrying Mort, teaching you to handle the transformations carefully since most untransform you when you take a hit, or killing 10 pizza ninjas with parries to show you that it makes for a more effective way of getting rid of annoying enemies. Before we jump into any levels, I gotta mention the art on this game. It's got such a rough edge to it that makes everything stand out in a great way. It perfectly complements the fast-paced, heart-pounding action, especially with Peppino's extremely exaggerated expressions whenever anything happens. Speaking of which, Peppino's among the best animated in this whole game and exudes personality. The feral energy of the max run speed, the anger he hits enemies with, his nervousness every time you enter a level. It perfectly encapsulates how the only thing this man's more filled with than anxiety is rage for this stupid floating pizza. There's also this TV in the top right at all times that I think is so cool because there's no reason for it to be there. It's purely a cosmetic thing, but it changes with you performing actions and collecting things, so sometimes I like looking up there anyway. Like, look at this clip right here. It switches a lot between multiple states because I'm doing stuff like getting transformations, keeping speed, and grabbing items. It's so charming. All this extra effort just makes me wonder how much time must have been spent on it, and then I realize it was a whole hell of a lot because Peppino on his own has around 5,000 frames of animation. Yeah, good luck modding that shit. Enemies are also very expressive, and the bosses are standouts, especially with how zany and cartoonish they can get doing some attacks, like the vigilante shooting an exploding rat out of a rocket launcher, Noise's giant balloon in Phase 2, Pepperman's constant ready-to-murder face, and just the entirety of pizza-facing fake Peppino's fights. I'd also be remiss to not mention the title cards for each stage. They're super memorable and do a good job giving the feel of the level they're paired with. Like, look at the card for Gnome Forest and say this game isn't a masterpiece. Wars helps sell the frantic chaos of the level, Pizza Scare shows you the level's mechanic at work in the art, the title of Don't Make a Sound contrasting the overly happy image, Wasteyard's more subdued portrait. I really like the one for Pig City, showing the noise seemingly gathering these guys to go after Peppino. This also extends to the bosses with these exaggerated caricatures of each character. My favorite's probably Pepperman just because of how far away it is from the actual boss. This guy looks like a funny little pepper. This guy looks like he's taking the meanest shit of his life. On the topic of art, I want to talk about actual level aesthetics, cause I think they're really good. Firstly, I like how no matter what the level, all of them are themed to pizza or food. There's goblins in pizza boxes, these giant pieces of cheese in the Gulf area that are playing the wrong sport. This enemy is called a gabagool. According to the game, space is inhabited by olive people for some reason. There are stages like the pizza sauce area. You go in a giant fridge, the sewer where they get Little Caesar's pizza from, and what's funny is I make that joke, but I still like eating it like the simpleton I am. Despite how zany and different all the levels get since they all follow this trend, it makes it feel cohesive anyway, which is very impressive. I also like how they go above and beyond conventional level themes. It's never just a location, there's always some gimmick to them. Like, the easiest example of this is, refrigerator, freezerator. It's the standard ice level of the game, but as the name suggests, it takes place inside of a fridge, and has you increasing the heat inside to open up new pathways. Deep Dish 9 starts out in a spaceship and continues to crash landing on an alien planet made of pizza where you blast on rockets through pizza asteroids. Wasteyard could be considered the ghost level, but it takes place in a graveyard where you fight off and turn into a ghost, where the Pillar John at the end haunts you during pizza time, forcing you back to the start of the room if you get caught. It makes every level have a strong identity and be very memorable, and as I touched on a little bit at the last one, there's also a ton of gimmicks for each stage that adds to their enjoyability. Knight armor that slides you through the place, winning races against this horse for toppings, being handcuffed by pigs, literally just a shotgun, funny chicken, Freddy Fazbear! There's crazy variety in this game, and for the most part, they're all good. I like how they stick to being rooted in platforming, which makes them all feel natural and non-intrusive. It's not like other games that try to have variety and are like, hey, wanna play the bad part of the game now? No. That being said, they aren't all winners. The cheese transformation in oh shit is extremely stiff and slow, and I feel like the game knows that it's a downgrade, but it doesn't do anything interesting either, which makes me wonder why I have to deal with it. The barrel and crust Cove isn't great either. You mostly roll forward and watch things happen, but sometimes when enemies get thrown in the mix, you get hit when it doesn't feel like you should have been. I also get annoyed by pretty much everything going on with the King Ghost and Pizza Scare. This comes at you near the end of the game when you'll probably have a good enough handle on the movement to be moving fast, and there are quite a few times where the ghost sets off a trap you can't react to fast enough before you've already slammed face first into it. I've gotten to the point where I can memorize when to jump to avoid a trap before it comes up, but if you don't do that, which which most people won't. You're kinda getting bitch smacked by everything unless you decide to slow down. Overall though, I'd still say that there isn't a bad level in this game, which is super impressive considering even in really good platformers like this, there's always the token stage you'd rather not be playing right now. I'd probably say the closest the game gets to that is Ancient Cheese, but even then, it's at worst an okay stage. Speaking of which, let's run through a couple of those stages while we're at it. I think the first floor has a fantastic spread of levels, with John Gutter being a superb introductory stage, Pizzascape getting you acquainted with the transformations and beginning more complex level design, and Blood Sauce Dungeon has extremely vertical level design that prioritizes movement, making the climb down pretty difficult, but the rush back up during pizza time awesome. Ancient Cheese sticks out as the weakest of the four, but even then it still introduces disappearing platforms, bombs, and keys, which all get a decent amount of usage through the game. Floor 2 starts with Oregano Desert, a fun stage with a fun transformation, and I also like these supermarkets that make you complete mini challenges for toppings. They usually intertwine multiple gimmicks in the stage in interesting ways, though I'm not sure why these cows are here. They're a bit out of place, but I do like the market challenge where you dodge them to keep the flame mouth. I had to take a little bit to come around on Waste Yard because I didn't care for this one initially, but now it's a pretty fun one. A lot of what I didn't like came down to the ghost transformation because it was originally locked to 8 directions, which felt super bad, but they patched it to have a full range of motion, so that issue's been voided. The other gimmick, being the ghost of Pillar John, is fun. You end up in some tight scenarios where you're inches from touching him, which makes pizza time very exciting, but also makes it kinda heartbreaking when you get reset to the beginning of the room and your combo gets broken. Fun Farm has a guest of honor in the form of Mort the Chicken from this goofy little PS1 game I have a little experience with. This is the worst part about Pizza Tower. This game used to cost $15, now it's nearly double that. I don't have 30 Mort books. In a weird way, him being such an obscure character makes him fit in really nicely, and he makes for a fun transformation too. He drags you around Ratatouille style and lets you cling on hooks. A patch changed how these work, and now you kinda magnetize onto them, which makes it easier, but also feels way weirder as someone who was able to time it good before. The flow here is kinda weird because you can blaze through the stage like normal, but more sections make you slow down and platform more, which I thought was a good change of pace. You can also find the almighty Mort Cube here. This is a win for chickens everywhere. Fast Food Saloon is a very high energy stage, which is nice, and the stage focuses on you maintaining that speed with these horse races, the fans that let you glide upward during a run, and the sausage you ride. Yep, that's the best way to say it. You can pick up a ton of speed, and all these gimmicks get even more fun when they intersect with these buttons that temporarily open paths for you. Crust Cove's tropical theme helps contrast the darker colors used in almost all the levels before this, which is something all of Floor 3's levels do. I already discussed the barrel, but I do like the pirate shooting cannonballs at you, coupled with the rapids and the water you need to run over. It gives pizza time an even more energetic feel than usual. I mean, what's better than an intense time limit? A time limit where everything's exploding. Golf is a bit of an odd one. It's the closest thing the game has to a gimmick level where you're playing Guess Who, but it's integrated so seamlessly with the running and platforming that I feel like that label's stretching it. By grabbing this grease ball, you can take a swing at him to get him to the golf hole, and obviously, you know, less strokes you use, better rank you get, gives you more points. It's golf, dude. What do you want from me? What's fun is you can still blast through parts because your run can throw grease balls same as a 9-iron, so if your movement's good, some holes can be beaten without even bringing out the club. Deep Dish 9 is up there as one of my favorite levels, weirdly enough kind of being foreshadowed in Oregano Desert, and I think this is the only time something like that happens. Aside from the fact it keeps things moving, and I like that, the rocket and olive bubbles work together and make the stage be large both vertically and horizontally. The highlight is probably the room once you go to space with lots of secrets, collectibles, and enemies to combo off of. In a game with usually compact level design, it stands out as being on the more open side, and I think it'd be nice if there was more of it. Gnome Forest, a stage I probably would have skimmed past if not for the central gimmick, that being Gustavo and Brick. I love the little detail of them getting into small scuffles on the previous floors, and on this floor, where they get their first level, they've made up and are cool with each other. These guys are so awesome and funny looking. Like, I know Brick looks like the other rats in the game, but he's the rat, and Gustavo flopping on the floor, like, come on, you gotta buy this game right now. They control semi-similarly to Peppino, but they have just enough differences where it's fun to swap to them on on occasion, and that there's a new learning curve to deal with. You can still run, though you can't keep the run while changing direction. The attack isn't a grab, you just barrel through people, a kickable rat, and a double jump that also replaces the ground slam and can transition into a wall jump. The wall jump was a bit finicky at first, but it got a lot better when I realized holding the button automatically jumps you from wall to wall. I really like playing as Gustavo and Brick, but I feel like the reason why some people don't jive with them is because you barely play as them enough to properly learn them. Only 2 stages, this one and another on the next floor, which sucks. It would have been nice if there was one stage for them on each floor, maybe in the stages for floors 1 and 2. They'd be separated because they're still fighting and you have to get through the stage with 2 halves of a complete moveset. Something like when you split up the duo in Banjo-Tooie and some of the movement abilities are divided between Banjo and Kazooie, and when they're brought back together you can use pretty much everything. I imagine another reason why people didn't get down with them either is that this is a pretty underwhelming introduction. Gnome Forest isn't bad by any means, but it definitely feels like an ancient cheese scenario, where when compared to the bangers on the rest of this floor, it falls short a bit. On top of that, despite the level catering towards you learning how to use the duo, it feels like you only get the basics and that's it. There's not much else here to get you hooked to them besides the essentials, and I feel like the other level they got, Pig City, is a much better showcase of what they do and how they differ from Peppino, but that means Gustavo and Brick in this game feels like you get the tutorial stage and then one fully fleshed out experience. Like, man, that's it? While I'm on a tangent about them, I might as well move on to Pig City. It's usually the first level I tackle on floor 4 anyway. Pig City does a good job showing the dichotomy between Peppino and Gustavo. One part that kinda hurt Gnome Forest was how, since it was Gustavo's tutorial stage, the Peppino parts were pretty forgettable. Pig City instead uses the Peppino parts to establish a gimmick and the Gustavo parts to switch them up. There's these rails you can grind, cementing this game as a masterpiece, and these rat balloons that you ride up on. But when you switch to Gustavo, the rails act as bars to grab onto and the balloons let you float for a bit and power up your double jump. Additionally, there's these pigs with handcuffs. With Peppino, you build up speed in one direction, then go the other way to break free. With Gustavo, you get bricks stolen from you, forcing you to have to get them back to proceed. It shows off Gustavo's strength and slower-paced, careful platforming, which kind of positions him as the Mario to Peppino's Sonic, contrasting his high speeds. Coupled with the personality of the level, with you driving to toppings in taxis and then getting faked out by a car driven by Pizza Face that takes you to jail, making Gustavo bust Peppino out, yeah, it's an easy contender for best stage in the game. Back to the normal levels, the subtly titled Oh Shit. I used to think this was the worst level in the game, but it's grown on me. It mainly caused trouble because of the level being more cramped than usual, these asshole pizza ninjas, and me thinking this trash can mechanic was out of place and unneeded. Over time, I appreciated it more though. The cramped level design makes doing micro movements, bouncing off walls and stuff even more satisfying than usual with the less room you have to work with, and the pizza ninjas got easier when I remembered to actually parry them. The trash lid still feels a bit unnecessary, but I like using it to go against the water currents, and I also like these guys that swing you around, and it's pretty cool when they're used against you in Pizza Time. I still don't care for the cheese transformation. It isn't horrible, just something I'm not sure why it's here. I have fun with the level as a whole now, though. You gotta make quick decisions to run through here without slamming into every wall imaginable, which added a nice little flavor to things. Peppy Bot Factory has a lot of fun gimmicks going on with these conveyor belts that later have dash panels coming towards you, push you back, and these hands that keep your run speed while moving you. I kinda wish they did more with that, since you only sometimes use it to break steel blocks above you, and that's about it. The pizza box transformation is fun, and I've never played the Fly Wrench game, so I don't have much reference for this, but the box controls exactly like Fly Wrench does in Super Meat Boy, and I'm not sure if that was intentional or not. The pizza box still makes for a good transformation though, and I thought the fake out where the exit gets dragged away at the end was really fun. Freezerator is probably the fastest level in the whole game, especially in the first segment with the long stretches coupled with the grind rails. You go so fast you can barely react to what's coming up, which is pretty cool. Pizza Time also mixes it up by giving you a spicy pizza that lets you fly around, kill enemies by touching them, and break ice blocks, making it one of the easier end-of-level segments to blow through. Really, there isn't a crazy amount going on in this level. I just think that accentuating the high speeds that you can reach in this game was a really fun idea for a single level to go through, so it gets a thumbs up from me there. Final set of levels starting with Pizza Scare, which is probably the hardest level in the game. I've already said my piece about the King Ghost. Yup, his traps are a real bastard. But there's also the standard ghost that'll hit you if you even think about getting near them and can only be killed by running up to these exorcists, and even then the ability to get rid of the ghost is only temporary, and I swear when I use it there's always like 1 or 2 left after I get through all of them. A lot of these can be solved by taking your time, but even that's not entirely viable since a large portion of the stage takes place in pizza time. It's not horrible, like I get it, it's the end of the game, but it definitely feels like there's the largest quantity of shit to deal with at once in this stage. Next is don't make a sound, and yeah. While it is the whole theme of the level, and I joked about it earlier, it is genuinely surprising how good of a job it does converting FNAF to a platformer, especially since allegedly McPig hasn't played a FNAF game, although I haven't seen a citation on that. This is a stealth level with the biggest quotation marks around stealth, because that really just translates to kill people fast enough so they don't even have time to register you're there. If cameras spot you, it begins a countdown. Once time's up, the animatronics decide to get in on the action. The camera alarm opens specific doors, so sometimes you gotta deal with the chase. It feels very exhilarating and makes it fun as someone who plays like they inhaled an inhuman level of crack. The level finishes up with you doing what every night guard could never and shooting the animatronics in the face with a shotgun, easily a standout level. Finally, we end on War, a stage with only 2 things at play, the shotgun you use for the whole level and the stage being permanently an even harder pizza time. The timer needs to be refueled by breaking these monitors so you can keep it from running out, and if it does, that's instant death, no running from that one. Also, since the shotgun's used a lot here, I'll say, it's fun, but I don't like how the shotgun blast stops you from grabbing so you can't quick start a run as easily. This is another one that appeals to the move fast part of my brain since the time limit isn't long by any stretch and missing an extension can be a death sentence. That's all the levels in the game, an excellent display. It's hard picking favorites out of these, but there's also bosses to get through. The bosses in this game are all super fun, which is nice to say, because looking at this game, initially I thought the levels would be great, and then you get through the bosses quickly so you can get back to the fun part. Thankfully, not so. They keep the same energy as the stages, but in a different way, having you jump and dodge past an onslaught of attacks at once. Pepperman starts us off, and I love the personality of this guy. Looking at his animations, boss arena, and his artistic work, you can instantly tell what his deal is. He's an egotistical ass out of a painter, the kind of guy to repaint the Last Supper with himself as Jesus, and if you want to pick a fight while he's in the middle of that, well, you're being drawn as Judas, buddy. He's a perfect first boss, serving as a nice introduction while also being no slouch either. It shows the template the bosses follow as well, with the first health bar showing you their attacks, and the second making you deal with harder versions and other stuff sprinkled on top. Pepperman's attacks are all simple, he's the first boss after all, but the second phase has a lot going on and teaches you that you gotta pay attention to like 5 things at once to not get knocked around. These statues always blindside me, there's these other enemies coming from the side, and there's making sure to actually hit Pepperman himself, but all in all, not too bad, a great first boss to start the game off with. The Vigilante, a cowboy who's not barbaric enough to make the fight unfair, but is still willing to use military-grade rat launchers and raise his grandfather from the dead to make sure you stay down. I think it goes to show how good the characters in this game are when this is probably the least memorable boss character, and I still think he's great. You get this little pea shooter for this boss, and coupled with all the attacks flying around, it almost feels like a bullet hell at points. The Ghost and Cow are so simple to deal with, but they still manage to take hits off me, and I think that has to do with the difference in doing damage in this fight. With the other bosses, you're waiting until you get the opportunity to hit them, but with Vigilante, you don't have those explicit openings since you can do damage to him at all times. Speaking of which, I'm happy they got around the usual trapping of this type of boss where the periods between attack opportunities is way too long, so you're sitting around for a while until it's your turn. Yes, I have played Sonic Superstars recently, I'm still getting over it. Here it's balanced out where you get many chances to get a hit in, but the windows are small. On top of that, when you are waiting, there's so much stuff to dodge that your brain's active anyway. Basically, the game's bosses are designed well, that's what I'm getting at here. The Noise is up next, no relation, although he does have a pizza crusher like the Noid, a reference so good I didn't realize it until I was writing this, how embarrassing. The Noise is one of the most love-to-hate-him characters from as soon as you see his Waluigi-looking ass in the intro card. You can easily gather from his boss arena that he has a pretty big ego around him, but he also just kind of attacks you like some kind of feral animal. Weirdly enough, his boss is the easiest in the game, but also ends up being the most most memorable. The Noise's face is plastered everywhere during this, from the giant balloon, his smile being his health, these little affronts to God. It makes everything surrounding the boss have just as much personality as the boss itself. This one's also a bit more interesting. The prior bosses had set attack patterns, while Noise has a set of moves he picks from at random, which keeps things interesting. What makes him easier is probably how there's less stuff going on than usual at one time, especially in Phase 1 where you only have to worry about Noise himself and nothing else. But despite that, still a fun time. I see. So this goopy guy is fake Peppino, and this might be my favorite boss in the game. As it is, I'm already a sucker for that boss trope where you're fighting against what's basically yourself, and that's even better when they mimic your moves, which is something fake Peppino does. He's got the grab, slam, super jump, super taunt. He even has my iconic head throw move, I just haven't done it yet. In between his attack cycles, you also have to deal with a bunch of his clones rushing you too, but this boss gets real crazy real fast by Phase 2. Now you have to get hits on the fake Peppino in while dodging the even faker Peppinos, and it very quickly turns into a game of jumping all over the place. This is an important boss to not just remember parrying is helpful, but also that you still have your movement options in bosses, so don't be afraid to run on walls and stuff. A cool detail for this fight is how if you change what costume you go into it with, fake Peppino also changes to match, and depending on what you're wearing, it can make discerning which is a clone and which is the real one marginally more difficult. In fact, with the all black clothes, there's no difference at all, so have fun with that chaos. It's the most fast-paced boss, which kinda makes it a difficulty spike, but it also makes it a damn fun fight to come back to. Last up is the big man himself, Pizza Face. His first phase is kinda like the Bowser battle in Mario World, weirdly enough, with him tossing enemies down that you throw back at him. This part is deceptively difficult. Literally all he can do is throw enemies down and ground slam, but I swear I always manage to get hit in some way that makes me feel stupid. The second phase is crazy, cause first off, the Pizza Face was just a robot being piloted by this Tumblr sexy man, and immediately afterward he starts running all over the place while this demented track plays in the background. He throws rats at you, brings the status TV onto the field, pulls up a body pillow of himself. He's a freak. The third phase features one of the few fun boss rushes. Each of them only take 4 hits, but all that means is the bosses start using their best moves quicker, finishing off with the last round against Pizza Face, who only has 3 attacks. But after how long the boss has been, that's enough to make you want to play it safe anyway. Peppino body slams the pizza into his own tower, and now it's time for a good old-fashioned escape sequence. The crumbling tower of pizza caps this game off, and I love this entire level. It's more of a victory lap than anything, not terribly hard, and the time limit isn't scathing, but it's just a cool and fun idea. This is what the jawing blocks in the hub were for, because now that they've switched, it forms a level where you run your way down and out. There's also new sections that throw gimmicks from every level at you at once, making for a surprisingly triumphant way to close out the game. So yeah, that's the way Pizza Tower ends for most people. The tower's down, Pizza Face pretends he's a plant, and Peppino goes back to his restaurant with enough money to probably cover half of his debt if he's lucky. But what if you want full completion? Well, that definitely complicates things. This begins a divide within Pizza Tower. There's the game where you have a fun jog through these levels, collecting toppings and working your way up to the top of the tower, leaving the game satisfied after pummeling Pizza Face. Or there's Pizza Tower, the game where every movement is perfected, every action is precise, where you know level layouts better than you know the street your house is on, having you willing to spend hours on fully completing one level, mastering its gimmicks, optimizing your route, and doing that over and over and over just to finally win and then repeat the learning process when you move on to the next level. What's going on here then? Well, the ranking system. Depending on the amount of points you get in a level, you'll be ranked from A to D. Generally, you probably get A's or B's. D ranks require so little points that getting them in some levels is considered a challenge run, which is pretty funny actually. However, there are 2 ranks that go above and beyond these, those being S and P rank. To go about getting these ones, now there's a bunch of other stipulations to consider. First off, there's the secret eyes. 3 of these are hidden in each level and award you big points if played right. I like how usually if getting to one of the eyes requires breaking a wall you wouldn't think of interacting with, there's some eye graffiti painted onto it. Despite that, some secrets can still be hard to find. My mind immediately jumps to the first secret and don't make a sound. Yeah, this is probably the most cryptic one. On top of this, you also need to find this janitor named Jerome and bring him to this door to get a secret ingredient. And getting both of these basically tacks on 2 other secrets to get. Finally, when you run back to the start during pizza time, right next to the exit, you'll usually see a giant pizza floating around. This is the lap 2 portal where you do pizza time, but again, and with the timer still down, so get ready to run for your life. Here's the fun part, doing all of that successfully only gets you an S rank, cause get this, that's the easy part. P rank adds one small thing that makes this whole endeavor much harder. You see this combo meter? From the first enemy you kill to the end of the stage, you gotta do all of the above and make sure the meter never drops. Keeping combo involves collecting a lot of small toppings, big toppings, cage toppings, defeating enemies, and generally collecting points from doing tons of different stuff. That might make you think there's a lot of ways to keep your combo up, so it shouldn't be that problematic. Well, you're a buffoon of the highest order, because in fact, dropping combo is the thing that's most likely to kill your P rank. Thankfully, getting hit doesn't make you lose the P rank altogether. You can tell because I'd be talking from a padded cell if that was the case, but it does cut half of your combo, and in some levels that can be the absolute pits. If there's one thing you have to prioritize when doing P ranks, it's routing. This mostly relates to the secrets, as not only are there secrets during the normal level and during pizza time, a lot of times it's more beneficial to get certain secrets on your way back. Let's take Crust Cove for example. You find Jerome in this breakable part of the roof and the door is on the normal path. There's one problem though, there's a long run between Jerome and his door, so instead what you can do is wait until pizza time when you run backwards through this section, take a pit stop at where the door is hidden, and nab it then, since it'll be a lot easier to get to the door this way while keeping combo. Going even further with this, in Blood Sauce Dungeon, Jerome's in a pretty inconvenient position, so you can save him for pizza time, but by then you'll have passed his door, but thankfully you can save this as well and get it during lap 2. Some levels can also make it outright impossible to get certain secrets until pizza time, which can put a strain on your time limit and opens up potential for you to miss secrets completely. I was gonna mention this section of oh shit where it's pretty easy to lose combo while rolling down, so you can plan ahead and avoid some of the small toppings on the way up, so you can collect them while coming back, but in a Halloween patch they changed it so there's rats on the walls so you can keep the combo from just that. I kinda don't like this, apart from the fact that this just looks weird. I also like these little moments where you have to strategize a bit instead of just running through like a maniac, so it's a bit sad to see one of those parts removed. That being said, even planning won't save you. There are a couple levels that have some stretches where getting hit means losing combo entirely. Shout out to these electrical blocks in War and this plugging pizza scare, because if you get hit by either, there's nothing close enough to refill your combo, and you'll probably be running fast enough that it'll blindside you so you just lose. Gnome Forest, I swear, was amongst the hardest P ranks in the game, specifically because of the stretch where you need to maneuver perfectly or else the combo runs out before getting to the big topping. Thankfully, this also got patched to be easier because you couldn't really do anything about it. Level-specific mechanics can also have a lot of sway over how difficult a P rank is, like for example, don't make a sound isn't horrible normally, but if the animatronics get you, your combo is instantly broken, making things extremely tense, especially when you run back to Jerome while all of them are chasing after you. On the opposite end, the golf gimmick of that one completely fills your combo meter each time you pick up Greaseball, making a good 70% of the level super easy. Lap 2 also changes these levels pretty heavily too. Freezerate or Spicy Pizza is taken away from you for lap 2, so any ice blocks you have left in your path during pizza time are now permanent obstructions. Golf has the holes you beat during pizza time already cleared, so you can pretty much run your way to the end of the stage without any problems. I think Golf might be up there as one of the easiest P ranks to get. War easily takes the cake as my favorite for how getting a P rank changes the stage, unlike during usual pizza times. The War timer keeps going when you're in secret rooms, and what's just as interesting is that every secret here is in plain sight. It creates this unique dynamic where the challenge of the secret rooms comes less from finding them and more from how much time it takes away from your already limited amount. Coupled that with losing access to the shotgun during lap 2, similar to the gimmick in Freezerator, and this is definitely one of the most fun levels to P rank. I still vividly remember when I did a P rank for the first time here, since this is the type of person I am. I got through the first level and instantly tried to P rank it, and while it might have taken me around an hour and a half, that's not bad considering I was still learning the game and it was my first time trying. Then I hit Pizzascape, and I use hit in the same way a semi-truck hits a car going 90 on the highway. This took 3 hours, and I was a very different person by the end than when it started. And funny story, after going back, I tend to say this is on the easier end of P ranks to get. Pizza Scare, Peppybot Factory, Gnome Forest, oh my god, I know I said Gnome Forest got simplified by having that large stretch taken out of the equation, but that still doesn't account for the other bits to run through that are devoid of any combo food, having to go through the Gustavo tutorial each time you restart is soul crushing, and the final secret is right next to the exit gate, meaning meaning you gotta save it for lap 2. Peppino Factory feels like the sleeper hit for difficult P ranks. This is the only level where I've missed toppings, mainly because of platforms you can't come down from. Lots of sections where messing up means it's a wrap, especially here right after the Pope with the dash pads on the conveyor belts. Then there's getting to the janitor door, which is probably in the most unfortunate spot out of all of them. And since they couldn't help themselves, lap 2 is blocked off by a rat who's looking very bombable right now, and I am sad to say I have in fact lost runs because throwing bombs is harder than it looks, okay? Pizza Scare, where do I even start? Oh yeah, keeping combo here is extremely difficult because you'll be taking lots of pot shots to the King Ghost, and especially the Knife Ghost, like holy hell. There's also only one secret you can get before pizza time, and even then it's so inconvenient I usually save that one as well, so good luck making it back before the big guy shows up. Speaking of which, that first secret is a bastard because messing it up is almost a guaranteed combo break, and the second secret is probably the most obscure in the game because you need to lure this enemy down so it'll kick you into this wall, destroying the hidden pin and opening up a secret area. I haven't used this mechanic since Pizza Skate, man, what the hell. Going through this whole ordeal for every level is hard, but when you execute everything properly, it feels incredible. After a few attempts, you eventually hit that one go where you hit everything properly, and it feels like you've entered this flow state. Doing that final sprint on lap 2 after you've already done what you need and it's just about getting to the end, you're never feeling that rush again. Might as well start pre-ordering that heroin so you can feel something. It felt incredible to see myself get better at the game to the point where even though I was doing harder levels, I was having an easier time getting P ranks, and I probably ran through most of floor 3 faster than I did floor 1. He's beginning to believe. It also feels like you learn more about the movement through doing P ranks. Moves that would have gone underutilized in normal play, like diving, super jump cancels, and slide dashes, become invaluable for saving time and correcting mistakes. It's for that reason, I think, even despite the difficulty of it, anyone who plays this game should try going for at least a few P ranks. It adds so much to the experience that I feel it's absolutely worth doing and made the game even better than it already was. Even when you get past all of that, there's still the bosses to deal with. Only one stipulation here, don't get hit, and in some of these that's much easier said than done. Pepperman and the Noise aren't anything crazy. I mean, Pepperman's the first boss, so pretty self-explanatory there, but Noise feels like there's way less going on than the other guys, so there's just not as many opportunities for you to get hit. Vigilante's a problem for one reason only in Phase 2, where you gotta deal with the cow and the ghost at the same time. All of a sudden, there's way more stuff you gotta shift your focus to getting rid of, making it a problem to get out unscathed, even without trying to deal damage to the Vigilante himself. Fake Peppino is where shit hits the fan. Phase 1 starts to feel like the boss's tutorial, with Phase 2 becoming the real deal. There's so many clones coming at you, and the real fake Pep is still very capable of getting hits of his own. And for the love of God, please don't mess up the escape sequence. It's super easy and takes 10 seconds, but if I got here and lost the P rank, you probably wouldn't hear from me again. Still would say Fake Peppino's probably also the most fun boss to P rank, just a really good fight all around. Everything before this is simple, though, in comparison to P-ranking Pizza Face. I have lost runs to getting hit by the normal enemies he spits out in Phase 1, which is soul-crushing, thanks for asking. Phase 2 I do mostly good in, but despite the many attacks happening in quick succession, what always manages to hit me is the small gear that's extremely telegraphed and rolls along the floor slowly. Also, shout out to when he shoots the gun, because I dodge the bullets easily. No, I usually get hit by him tossing the gun away when it's out of ammo. Come on, man. The boss rush? Yeah, you'd think Fake Peppino would be the one to take a hit off me, but no, that'd always be the Vigilante for some reason. You gotta have a little more patience in dealing with him, since you gotta throw Gustavo at him to open up a hit. But even then, I'm still surprised at how many simple attacks trip me up. The final phase against Pizza Face is so intense and nerve-wracking, even though it's the simplest and easiest part of the entire fight. Just cause you know one tap is all it takes to go right back to the start, but when that final hit is landed, Peppino rockets to the tower, that music kicks in, damn does that feel good. Oh yeah, you didn't think I'd go the whole video without talking about the soundtrack, did you? That'd be like making a Cuphead video and not talking about the artistic direction. Oh god. I don't think there's a subpar track in the whole OST, but if I had to highlight a few, my favorites would probably be the themes for Pizza Time, Lap 2, War, The Vigilante, Pizza Scare, Blood Sauce Dungeon, Crust Cove, and Peppino Factory, even if the backing vocals sound like they're saying door stuck. My favorite part of the music in this game is how it has all this palpable energy that complements the gameplay but still has a lot of variety, like with the funkier songs in Crust Cove and Deep Dish 9. I also feel obligated to mention they released a bunch of unused and unfinished songs for this game, and there's like 3 Pizza Tower covers, the fucking song from The Grinch's Ultimatum, which is incredible. Alright, buddy, you can be the cheese slime or a rat. Those are your 2 options. The best song out of all of them easily has to be Unexpectancy Part 3. It feels like the music knows you're right at the end of the fight and is urging you to keep it up, which is only intensified when going for a P rank. This acts as an amazing way to close out an amazing game. Pizza Tower is one of the best platformers I've ever played, easily the best game I played in 2023, and something that I think anyone who likes platformers should check out immediately. Go check out Pizza Tower as soon as possible. It's quickly become one of my favorite games of all time, and if you didn't think it was that good, then go get out of here and play it one more time.